And we're live. Yep, so we'll just spend a minute or two bombarding our socials. Don't cough or anything.
Wouldn't do that.
Ooh, we're happening. We're a little bit behind, so no one's watching that. Into us. So there we go. Sent out on the video channel, and we'll see if we can do this on Tanya's Facebook page. What's on your mind, Tanya? Well, Lightbox is on my mind, everyone. And
Yeah, sorry, I've started.
yeah, that's fine. All good. We should be seeing things all popping up in the various channels and people watching and out there and about there. I've turned off the video in the background so I can't see myself. We are live. And I've just closed my script. There we go. Here we go. So, while the title's up, welcome to Lightbox, the official podcast of Wenimate, the West Australian Animation Association. Whether you're an aspiring animator, a seasoned professional, or simply a fan of the magical world of animation, you've come to the right place. My name is Tanya Beeson.
I'm David O'Connell.
And I'm Lindsay Flay.
And we'll be your guide in this monthly journey to the heart of the animation industry in Western Australia. Each month, Lightbox will bring you the latest and greatest in animation news, from upcoming films and shows to industry discussions that will inspire and empower the talented animators who call Western Australia home. We'll also delve into the creative processes, challenges faced by our local animators as they work tirelessly to bring their unique visions to life. So buckle up and get ready to be amazed as we explore the vibrant and ever-evolving world of West Australian animation. And so let's see. Here we are. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hey. Hello. Yes.
On the screen and everything's happening.
Indeed.
I have my headphones on, so my head's framed in this like box of my goggles and my.
Oh, look, I think we've all got the uniform on, headgear, eye gear, ear gear.
No.
Oh, no.
Without headgear, just running from a
So,
gun.
you decided to go nude on this broadcast.
There
there,
we go.
Dave.
Check out those ears.
Oh, my God.
Before
What are
we
those
get to
folded pink things? So,
folded pink things.
pink things.
Ears. We're referring to ears before anyone complains.
Take them away.
Yes.
I'm on the internet.
Yes.
It'll add that to the long list of trypophobia problems that we have with the current generation.
Oh,
Sorry, was I sounding old?
yes. Yes. those damn millennials.
Oh,
Yes.
No, that's you're talking about their parents, Tanya. It
Oh,
feels like MTV generation round 2. It's like, what are MTV generation? You mean their grandkids?
I have to admit, I like the Z Jenners. They're quite funny.
They are pretty good. They're a bit, poor little tykes are a bit uptight, but can you blame them? We've had our first once-in-a-generation major plague that we haven't had for many decades, and it caught everybody off guard. I mean, that's enough to knock anybody off their perch.
They're dealing with the environmental crisis on the level that we were dealing with nuclear war. So.
Except it's more down the track than it was when we were dealing with it. So, yeah.
before we get too heavily into it and just start discussing the nuances of the generations, we wish to acknowledge and honour the traditional custodians of the lands we are streaming from, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. We recognise and celebrate their enduring culture, the rich tapestry of Indigenous arts, and the invaluable contributions they make to the vibrancy and cultural diversity of this city and this region.
All right.
Also, before we dive into today's content, there's also, we'd like to issue a quick advisory warning. While our channel is generally suitable for most audiences, there may be occasions where we delve into topics or showcase content that might not be appropriate for younger viewers. We strive to create engaging and enjoyable content for everyone, but please be advised that some material may not be suitable for children. Parental discretion is advised, and we encourage you to review the content before sharing it with younger audiences. Our goal is to provide safe and enjoyable viewing experience for all, and we appreciate your understanding and support. Look at that. I went all professional.
You did.
You certainly did. And if we are going to take the premise that animation is for adults, then that's probably a very smart warning.
Interesting thing to talk about today. See?
I think so.
Maybe that's
but
how
we will cover that in due course.
Cool.
This session, in fact.
So we should. Okay, there's a couple of things we need to cover. Bless the Secretary of Wanamate, Travis Badge, who is probably watching but not listening at this point, or vice versa. But he wants us to tell you about the Wanamate website, which has been, are we saying upgraded?
I believe we are using that terminology, yeah.
Is that what the kids are saying these days?
The website has been upgraded and has more functionality that will allow you to enter the 330 animation competition. And I've got the awards night logo up again. I didn't fix it. Oh, of all the things, I wasn't even paying attention.
Oh, look.
The three, yeah.
You've been running around like a blue ass fly there, right? I wouldn't lose sleep over it.
A blue ass fly, nice.
Indeed. Sorry, kids. That was. I'd just like to put out a child's advisory warning there. That was an old person reference.
Wow.
So I'll just get out my Zimmer frame. Back in the days when we dodged dinosaurs, that was the sort of expression we'd say. Like, they're mad as a cut snake, which isn't an endorsement of cutting reptiles, but
well, that was well before I was born. You know, we were riding around on dinosaurs by the time I came.
Oh, yes.
So yes. So the 330. We've got 3 days till the 330 ID word is announced. So jump onto wanamate.org.au and sign yourselves up to enter the competition. The word will come out, as I said, in 3 days, and the films are to be handed in 94 days' time.
Jiminy Cricket.
That's nearly 100 days. So, there's no relationship between 100 and 330, but no.
Sorry.
No,
sorry.
90.
That's inflation,
90,
kids.
3 times 30. See, I'm not good at this. I'm the worst person to be seen on a screen, I think. So, the 330 animation competition, with which you take 3 months to do 30 seconds of animation, and you submit your film. And the competition is judged by an international lot of judges that will announce as we go across the next couple of months of Lightbox, as the judges pop up and appear for us. So I think we've announced the first judge already. I think that's out there in the world, so you might have seen. So there will be more coming soon. Yes, all these people that are officially judging you, except my students. So, of course, I'm judging you all the time.
Well, assessing.
Oh, official word. Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
All right. Well.
Cool. Okay, so 3:30 is up. Ba-bam. Let's talk about the news, because we've got a lot of news to go through today.
There's a fair whack of stuff to talk about. More than good.
Yeah. Go for it. You're a news reader, David.
Oh, good Lord. Okay, so let's run through quickly. So, after 25 years, Canada's only dedicated cartoon channel, Teletoon, has stopped broadcasting. So that's happened 2 days ago. Netflix, He-Man, and the Masters of the Universe. So there's two. So that's not the one that Kevin Smith's involved with. That's the more exaggerated animated one. May not be renewed. Now there's some debate on that. Basically, one of the production crew ended up stating that they were done. That's it. Netflix has decided not to renew it, and then on their social media, and then a couple of days later posted, just because they've decided not to renew it doesn't mean it's done. So it's in that limbo. I don't know if they're shopping around for another channel to take up the next season or what.
Well, there might be that period where they haven't quite come to terms with it yet, and then it just all settles down naturally.
Yeah. Okay, so we've had a few awards since our last broadcast, talking about the best animation of the last year, and the awards did not agree with us entirely. So there's no surprise there. So we had the Annie Awards, which Pinocchio and Oni really cleaned up at, taking most of the prizes between them. We've had the Anime Awards with Cyberpunk and Family X Spy taking most of the awards.
That'll please all the Trigger Studio fans.
Yeah, we barely talked about Cyberpunk, and we did mention Family X Spy in passing, but it's something none of us have seen. So yeah,
no, yeah.
I've seen Cyberpunk.
I've watched
caught up with Cyberpunk. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's classic Trigger Studio stuff, very extreme, almost silly in places, but yeah, very stylish and that kind of Tokyo street punk look. But they always seem to have main characters that look like they're perpetually in torment and suffering. So I guess that makes it edgy, I suppose.
Well, that's perfect for
Cyberpunk. It definitely had its moments, but yeah, there were times where like, you could probably dial it down a bit. It's now starting to border on the silly and a little over the top. But no, it was good. I didn't regret it. So.
Okay, Tanya, I'm not quite over this one. The Netflix Gorillas movie is on live support.
So there was.
I didn't know they were making one.
Yeah. So it's been talked about for a little while. The Netflix Gorillas. Okay. Hold on, let me bring up my own notes on that, because I'm disorganized.
Okay. Well, before we talk on that, I'll fill in time then. But we have at least seen some Netflix stuff coming. We did see over the last weekend a trailer for the new Gamera Netflix TV series. So animated Gamera is coming to TV.
Good grief.
Gamera. Giant turtle, friend of children, savior of the universe, or guardian of the universe.
It was the turtle. I'm thinking now. Mothra is the moth, isn't it?
Yes.
David is the expert here in terms of the giant creatures. Apparently, I'm told that Gamera is not in the MonsterVerse of creatures. So.
Different studios.
So this is how they lock in the 4-year-old market.
Yeah. Yes, go on.
Oh, no, go for it. I was going to go into the diatribe, but it doesn't matter.
Basically, there's been plans for a while about doing a Gorillas movie. As of February, so a couple of weeks ago, the Gorillas Netflix movie has been cancelled and confirmed by someone who's been involved with the band for a little while. I quote, "The new record came about because Jamie and I were often in Los Angeles. We were working on a gorillas feature film, which will never happen. And that was all that was said. It had been talked about for a little while, but and I'm sure it's got a lot of fans potentially to get out there. I know a lot of people who love the gorillas and love the style, and
almost cross-generational, you could say.
They've got a Powerpuff Girls character in it. I love it so much. Like, I don't know how that happened. It's been explained to me previously, but there's now a Powerpuff Girls character that is a member of the band The Gorillas. So, and of course, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, 90s version, I imagine, not the new one.
I haven't seen any of the new ones. So.
I've seen a bit of them. They definitely have lost their spark. It's just a little too, what's the word? Sea time, I think would be the way to describe it.
Yeah, okay. Lost their edge.
No the mayor has lost his assistant and all that sort of stuff.
Sarah Bellum is missing.
I think she is, yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah, it felt like they were getting into that horrible situation where it stopped pretending that it was a cartoon and started getting into lore and plot and motivation. It's just like, where's the Rowdy Puff Boys when you need them? God damn it!
the Rowdy Rough
Boys. Sorry.
Yes.
And sorry, Mojo Jojo will never forgive me. But anyway,
Mojo Jojo is the best villain of all time.
Oh, he's just.
Yeah. I was going to say,
an angry monkey with a brain. I love it.
Would it be Mojo Jojo or her that would get the?
I think the.
You mean him?
Him, her, it, them. Where they were basically fighting over who's the most evil, man. and the Rowdy Rough Boys were their result. It was just, it was kind of pretty funny.
Anyway. The character's called him.
That's
the one
right,
in the high heels is
yes, that's right, him.
It's great.
Yes. Okay. Disney legend Rolly Crump has passed. He did a lot of the classic attractions in the Disney parks. He's known
you could say the guy who made Magic Mountain.
The ticket booth. That was the ticket booth that's based off of the ticket booth from one of my favorite Disney animations of all time, Pigs Are Pigs.
Pigs Are Pigs? Oh, really?
Yeah.
We're going back that far. Bloody hell.
Yeah. So, very, very cool.
Pigs Are Pigs. That's right, the guinea pig story.
Yeah, so the ticket booth was made to look like the little train ticket booth.
Now, there's a good reference.
Yes. Very cool. So unfortunately he's passed. He was 93 years old, so it's not like
excuse me.
Not like he didn't have an innings of sorts. But it's sad to see anyone go.
Yeah. And to continue on that theme, unfortunately, writer and editor Matt Reeves has passed away at the age of 72. You might know him from Batman the Animated Series, writer of Mask of the Phantasm, and some Gargoyles. So
I have seen some of those.
Yes.
Actually, I've seen all of the Gargoyles and not all of Batman the Animated. And I've seen Mask of the Phantasm. So.
It's probably one of the best Batman movies, and I'm not saying just animated movies, I mean Batman movies, and there's been a few.
There has. Maybe some would say too many. Yeah.
We've seen Crime Alley far too often, but yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
Lindsay.
Now, something interesting did turn up on Netflix this month, and that was We Lost Our Human. And there we go. So, Lost Our Human is Netflix having another stab at the interactive cartoon. You might recall they had one a few years ago with Black Mirror's Bandersnatch, I think it was, where you could choose your own adventure with that. You could kind of work your way through it. So this is like that, but apparently it's the version 2 version. And so according to some of the hype I read on, I think it was Animation News, there's something like 87 billion combinations you can watch this thing in by picking different adventures. So the actual animation itself is sort of about a 2 housebound two housebound pets, a small puppy dog called Ham and a large, big, fat cat called Pub. And they lose their human, who doesn't come home because all humans have been accidentally deleted. When they accidentally spill chili, spill chili on a power board, which causes a short circuit and blows up the universe, and then changes time and does all that sort of stuff. And so the whole thing is about them trying to get their human back, and they go on this series of interdimensional adventures. So it's a sort of post-Adventure Time look. It's got that kind of really stylized, almost motion graphic art look about it, as you can see from the designs there. There's more than just a little bit of a hint of Doraemon in there for your blue Japanese anime cat fans from the future. And it's got a touch of some of the, Pets from Liveworks? Not Liveworks, Imageworks. Oh, God.
Is Doraemon a cat?
Doraemon is a cat. The big blue thing? Cat with hyperspace pockets.
Its ears?
It's the magic of manga. Come on.
Okay.
So yeah, it's definitely part of that current fad we have. No longer sparkly vampires or zombies, but we're now in the multiverse fad, where everything happens everywhere all of the time. So now you can pick your adventures on how your characters find their human. So when you play through it, it goes for about 1.5 to 2 hours, say hour and 3/4, but it's constantly using different bits of it, so you can kind of choose your own adventure. So presumably you can go back and watch it over and over and over again and try different variations. Most of your decisions are like little silly things like, oh, Ham's about to spill the beans, should Ham spill the beans, or should, the cat intervene? And those things end up having unintended consequences all through it. So it's interesting. It's definitely worth a check out.
Nice.
So you can see the style's very simple, but yeah, it's good.
So things trigger other things down the track.
Absolutely. So you'll find, I found a future version of Pub turns out looking like someone out of Mad Max, scars, spikes, barbarian, all that sort of stuff. And then in the third iteration that it ran through, I actually saw that almost like the beginnings of his character starting to form. So elements that you see from other bits you haven't seen yet start interfering in the past. So as you go through it, you'll see all the various bits get filled out as you go. It's interesting. That must have had a nightmare putting it together.
So just because I've never done an interactive show or anything like that, so how does it work? How do I interact with it?
You basically just answer questions with your remote, left, right, and that's about it. You got a timer to do something, otherwise it defaults. But the other style this reminds me of is, for those who are really ancient, singing and listening on ABC radio when all us oldies were in 70s primary school. They had the singing and listening books that we all played in primary school, and we'd all sing along. And the art book that came with it had a style that looked remarkably similar to what we've got on screen here. So it's weird watching the early 70s stylized graphic late 60s thing suddenly become back into vogue again. I'll have to chase up some references on that, but yeah, it felt very familiar when I was watching it. And it wasn't because it looked like a cross between the wonderful world of Gumball and Doraemon. I was like, this I feel like I've been here before, but I can't put my finger on it. Singing and listening, ABC, 70s. There you go. Very obscure reference.
I'm gonna have to look that up. That sounds amazing. Cool. Okay, so let's go back a slide, Linz.
Okay, all right. So other news, right? So you've probably heard, some of you in WA have probably heard about the studios that are going up in Wangara, south of Whiteman Park, or on the border of Whiteman Park. Now these are proposed, and this is essentially version 2 of the Fremantle studio proposal. So Fremantle, strangely enough, turned out to be too expensive, too crowded, too packed, too everything, and it didn't make much sense. But this makes a lot more sense. So it's going to be essentially, what's Whiteman Park? 18 k's from Perth? 15? I'm not sure where.
Yeah, it's not far.
No, it's not that far, but it's if you're heading straight.
Rumor has it that a lot of studios down in Fremantle are still pushing for Fremantle as a location, but yeah.
Why? It's the worst place to put a film studio.
There's not enough space. So.
You'd think NIMBYs would have more sense, but anyway. So this thing has this proposal. Well, let's check my notes. They basically had applications for public comment was released earlier this week, and.
Shot in 2 days.
Yeah, basically you've got between the 17th of March to the 30th to make a public submission or a comment on this thing before they proceed, which means at the time of our broadcast now, you've got 48 hours to get something in and make your case. It feels... But you do get a nice PDF on what the whole thing's about. It's a bit dry, but it's essentially for studios, for workshops, what they call a boneyard, a backlot, offices and post-production facilities, all kinds of stuff, all in one spot. And I think Metronet is going to be running between it and Whiteman's Park. So at some point you'll be able to take the train there in the dim and distant future. So it sounds, and most of the actual PDF is just the usual, official boilerplate on, sustainability and function and all that sort of stuff, dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. So it's worth a read. And they're following on that attitude where if you put investment or funding in, like government funding into the film industry or the animation industry or whatever it is, you'll get 2 or 3 times back in the benefits in terms of what happens to your local economy.
And we've seen that's true across
that's generally a truism. So it's a pretty good thing to have, and it will certainly swing a bit of emphasis up there. Speaking of which, in Melbourne this month as well, Nant Studios, that's N-A-N-T, opened up apparently the world's biggest visual effects volume space. Now, if you know what those things are, these are the giant screens that they use to build studios with. The Mandalorian would be the standout example of one of the first examples of that. Well, this thing is massive. It's like something like 15 meters tall and 40 meters long, and it's monstrous. It's got a pool in the middle of it, so you can basically have water effects in the center of it. I think that's like a tank effect, so that sort of thing.
Nice.
And it's not like a big pond or anything. It's more like a kind of giant fish tank. And it's got all the various bits. The photos of it look freaking impressive, like something out of Ghost in the Shell or something before they reprogram somebody with some kind of mad anime gadget. But they're definitely coming to where the action is, which happens to be Melbourne. So I wonder if ILM in Sydney will start to hit it. So
hopefully
there's definitely something going down. I hope so, and I kind of hope we can sort of build it ourselves rather than have someone just turn up and just build it on top. We have enough troubles with resourcing companies treating us like a third world country, without it happening to us culturally. So,
in terms of the Homefast Studios, I'm hoping that the WA filmmakers who are involved in pushing all of this are listening and recognizing that animation is a big part of the industry, and we should be included in a lot of these decision-making processes. Generally, there's a bit of consultation going on.
Well, there's also a lot of blurring as well. Animation blends into visual effects, which blends into live action. And if there's one thing that these volume spaces do, especially in Melbourne, they blur completely the boundary between a game engine, animation, virtual production, post-production, production. Like it's all of now into one big kind of crazy ball. Everything, everywhere, all at once, if you like.
So if you've got any questions, any of our audience got any questions about it and want us to push some things with the bodies that are in charge of Homefast Studios, especially if you're invested in some way, send us a message, because that is our job as WANIMATE, the West Australian Animation Association. That is, we're here to push them to do things for you.
Yeah, so studio space, that's pretty promising stuff. If it gets off the ground and works out, the proposal looks pretty awesome. If we end up having things like TV series and stuff like that being made here on a regular basis, well, there's the rent paid straight away. So, yeah, could be good. You'll have somewhere to go. You won't have to go over east unless you want to. Yeah. Anyway, back to you.
We've got 2 pieces of news left. Do you want me to go with the good or the bad?
Bad first.
Bad first. Yeah, get the bad first.
So the bad first. So this is Disney, unfortunately.
What have they done?
Yesterday, I think it was our time. CEO Bob Iger announced plans to lay off about 7,000 staff. So it's rolling layouts, 3 big cuts starting this week, and then the next largest round is going to be coming early April, like the 3rd of April or something like that. So yeah, it does not sound good, and I'm assuming that's mainly to do with the Disney share price and the problems that it's been having with the pandemic and rollbacks, etc., of films, and knock on from that. But yeah, it's not looking good for animation with that, and Warner Brothers Discovery recently, and
now is our time to strike.
Yeah. Well,
so
Netflix shutting down studios, Warner Brothers, and now Disney.
Streaming shutting down stuff is inevitable, I think.
The advantage for us in the industry is that smaller studios can weasel the way in, because people will want things. Even if you're starting off doing background stuff for things, or maybe you're doing just titles, or maybe you're
time in the trenches.
Yeah. So if you've got a small studio and you're doing that sort of thing, maybe you've got a small TV series that has a limited, maybe it'll get out there purely because the big parties in the industry are cutting back. So.
Yeah. Wow. That's about 7,000.
Yeah, 7,000. Wow.
7,000 is ridiculous.
Time to start headhunting.
The numbers are a bit nebulous, because he's saying it's only going to be 3,000 cut, but 4,000 jobs are not going to be renewed. So,
okay. So contracts will be completed, not just
that's exactly the same.
Yeah,
it's just legal backtalk.
Yeah, absolutely. It's putting a fresh coat of paint on it and calling it done. Anyway, better news. There's a new Clone High coming out. So at WonderCon, they announced it, had images, and showed the new cast as well. So
is it a reboot or a new, or?
I don't have too much information on it. I think it's going to have some new characters, but there's going to be continuing characters from the old Clone High in it as well. So I think we're going to see Abe and JFK again with Joan of Arc. So yeah, I'll be down for it.
I'm interested to see where it goes. So it's
one of those shows that's kind of disappeared without a trace and hasn't had too much of a cultural impact. But I think it's fondly remembered by those that saw it. So yeah.
Well, here's us hoping for more Venture Brothers.
Oh, well, it's gonna come. We've been promised.
We've been promised. Yes.
All right.
Okay. We're past that. Upcoming. Let's talk about the upcoming stuff, because aside from the special effects spectaculars that we've sort of been seeing, so are we allowed to talk about any of that? I'm going to like preview stuff. I because we saw D&D and we saw Shazam.
Yeah. Oh, Shazam's already out in main release. D&D's coming out on Thursday in main release. And
both very cool. Both special effects, crazy films, very fun. Check them out if you can.
Yeah, anyone that's rolled a D20 in their time is going to be pretty happy with D&D, I'd say. It's a fun film. It really is a fun film. It goes a long way for making up for the 2000s monstrosities.
Jeremy Irons hamming it up. So good. No, the new film is great, and if you're a Disney animation fan, like from the 80s, the old 80s Disney series, check that out because
there's a couple of cameos that's going to make you very happy.
That's very, very cool. And as a big D&D nerd, I was sitting there, and for those of you who know of such things, there was a scene where a couple of rust monsters are fighting over a padlock. It's great. And my little heart went...
We've also got a lot coming up with Strictly Animated as well, which is going to be good. We've got Super Mario Brothers movie coming out on the 5th.
Very soon,
very soon.
Actually, looks well put together.
I saw that someone was complaining about its 92-minute runtime. I'm like,
and?
What?
An hour and a half is perfect. That's
hour and a half?
Yeah.
Such discipline. That's a fine thing to aspire to. Just remember, John Carpenter's The Thing is only 90 minutes long. It just feels a lot longer when you're idling under the seat.
We'll see how Chris Pratt handles being Mario.
Makes a nice change from the 4-hour, 3-episode monstrosity trilogy stuff that we get all the time.
That sound your mouth just made was the sound our hearts made when we heard about it. But the trailer looks all right. The trailer looks fun. And I'm looking forward to Jack Black as Bowser. So.
That should be fun.
Good, actually.
The publicity photos alone are worth it. So
I am not a panda. I'm a Bowser.
Okay, so around about the same time, Argonauts is coming out at 6th of April, but we've got advanced screenings of that this weekend.
Is that event? Argonauts or
Argonauts? So it's
Argonauts.
Argonauts, sorry. That's it. I'm saying Nauts. No, just straight in there, hey. All right.
Maybe there's a
it's based on the Argonauts. So yeah.
Actually, that's would make a good.
It's a fun film. It's all right. I found the voice acting a little bit awkward, but it is a foreign dub, so it is a French
look like
film.
The usual
is that right?
I believe it's French animation studio.
So it's quite nice. Their take on the Greek gods, and Jason is
perfect.
They really, really nail the Greek gods.
They're just arguing family that's pretty self-absorbed and wanting entertainment and streaming content, and that's what Earth is to them.
Nice.
The main story is interesting and ties together. It's fun. Take your kids. It's that sort of film.
It doesn't have a Roman numeral after it. What's going on?
A Roman numeral?
Yeah, well, it's not Creed 3 or Apollo 6 or.
It's a Greek myth. So it would have Alpha or Beta after it.
Oh yeah, of course.
All right, so Mavka Forest Song
is coming out. Ukrainian film.
Yeah, I'm not aware of this one. I'm sorry to say, we haven't seen it.
Neither am I.
I do not recognize that from anything.
I'm going to check.
Well, that's
out.
all we know. It's coming. It's got a girl with green hair in it and green eyes. There we go.
It looks quite nice, and some of the supporting artwork that's out there on the internet looks great. I'm gonna check it out. So Is that part of any festivals, or is that going to be a regular cinema release?
I think it seems like it's a regular cinema release. There's no festival
really
attached to it, which is surprising. So yeah, I'd be curious.
What about Argonauts? Same thing?
Yeah, Argonauts is same thing. It's coming out on the 6th. We've got advanced screenings this weekend. And yeah, it's going to be a regular cinema release again.
I should try and get to one of these once a week, I think.
And final one is Suzumi on the 13th of April. So Makoto Shinkai, so the director and writer of Your Name. And
right, yes.
Yeah, so it was one of the highest grossing films of all times in Japan. And we've got advanced screenings coming on Tuesday the 11th at Event if you get a chance to get ticket to one of those.
That's almost one new animated film for 3 weeks. It's not bad. April's looking good.
It does seem to be a little bit heavy on the first week, though, but
I'll take it as it comes. It's hard enough to get out to the movies these days as it is without spending $50 and...
True.
It just seems to be really hard to go and see a film. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's so busy lately. Actually, it's crazy.
That's only part of it. It seems the actual process of going to the movies isn't the quick, casual thing it used to be. It seems to be, I'm going to invest $150 and buy a vast concert ticket and then swill my Chardonnay around in my big, expensive chair. It's like, I just want to watch the fucking movie. It's like...
That changes in movies brings us neatly on to our actual topic at about the 40-minute mark. We finally get there.
Yay! So much news. Okay, let's talk about Hollywood's take on animation.
Lack of it.
This is one of the 2 most requested topics that generally are thrown at me. The other one that currently gets thrown a lot at me is the AI thing. We've spoken a little bit about AI. Maybe we devote a little bit more time to it. Maybe we open forums to later on down the track. It needs to be a discussion with someone a little bit more knowledgeable than me,
and a little more nuanced. I think that's a conversation as well.
I love it as a tool, but I'm aware that there's issues that people are concerned about. So, animation and the Oscars. What's you're the grey-haired one amongst us, David?
Oh yeah, damn, literally here. Eh? All right, so I don't quite date back to 1932, but let's start there. So we actually have the Best Animated Shorts category beginning at the Oscars in 1932. I think that was about the 5th Oscars.
Would that be the silly symphony stuff?
Is it Flowers and Trees?
That's the one.
Yeah. So like the 30s is pretty much Disney's decade to win. They I think they got the single short of that decade and just cleaned up there.
Then Hanna-Barbera and MGM got in there in the 40s. Upset
and things change a bit for them. Mm-hmm. So you've got Disney's dominating the initial Oscars. You also get a honorary award presented to Walt for Snow White. Or I should say you actually got an honorary Oscar plus 7 smaller Oscars presented for Walt for Snow White. What year that was released? So that was.
I couldn't ignore it.
Yeah, but the fact that they didn't give it a Best Picture award or anything like that, they counted it and made it its own special award for little animators.
Yep, exactly right. Now, there's also, you got to remember at this time, 34 was the start of the Hays Code as well. So that's animation was undergoing a degree of change and having to reinvent some of what it was. So it could no longer be as risque or as adult as it was before the code.
Less Betty Boop and Cuphead and more
34 was
34 is the Hays Code.
That's when the Hays Code pretty much came into power.
Doesn't Tex Avery fall after that point?
They would have fallen into the category of lewd adult animation. I think it would have been lowbrow. It would have been down on the ladder.
Act and There's a lot of changes. I mean, there's also kickback against it as you go along, and that's probably a topic for another time, is looking at animation under the Hays Code and going into detail as how that was pitched and some of the stuff that snuck through that they put there to be cut.
Yeah, so how it impacted animators, because I've heard a lot about how it impacted comics, and
neutered them. So you're thinking of the
that's a different
authority. That was more 50s.
Yeah,
and that was a response to things like EC horror comics and drugs and violence, and it was right up there with Mary Jane panics and all that sort of stuff.
But it's a similar sort of moral panic that actually changes an industry. So there is some degree of crossover here, and you can use it as a template as well.
So you got to imagine, even though the United States invents a lot of these new mediums, it's also been saddled by essentially, what my old man would have called wowserism, which you should never take your eye off or take for granted or just dismiss as lightly as silly, because it has on numerous occasions messed up the United States quite a few times, both culturally, politically, police-wise. If you think of Prohibition, that was all driven by moral hand-wringing, coming up with the worst solution you could possibly put together to deal with alcoholism, and effectively got the mafia its big break. Went from being street thugs to a major force.
Films like The Untouchables.
Absolutely, that's true. It made for and things like films like Scarface, for example. Were one of the reasons why the Hays Code got brought in for live action. It was so ultra violent, and the violence in that film back in the early 30s is still startling now.
But ironically, if we're talking about the Hays Code, mobster films actually flourished to some degree, and film noir flourished to some degree because it was able to walk up to that line and portray these dangerous criminals, because once they got the comeuppance at the end, they could walk that line better than normal bureaucrats.
They'd put the little bit of boilerplate underneath, the feeble excuse to justify the whole thing. Why isn't our Congress doing anything about this? It's like Cecil B. DeMille and his religious films. They seem to show an awful lot of very enthusiastic sin going on there when they got down to it.
Yes.
Very enthusiastic.
All right, so let's swing back to animation and Oscars. So let's and maybe put a question mark as maybe Disney's early dominance is because not just its technical superiority.
They were also the only game in town at that scale too.
Yeah.
There weren't too many others that size that could write the rule or set up the house rules either. Like Disney.
Each successful film allowed them to build upon the next one, and
so it does kind of set that initial template as to what animation is sort of viewed as by Hollywood as well.
Or by a lot of the general public and most people in filmmaking. It's like the idea that you've got Disney films and Saturday morning cartoons. Now, all that largely died out in the 70s, for heaven's sake, or early 80s, when Disney nearly died. And Saturday morning cartoons had a bit of renaissance in the 90s and then finally disappeared. But that attitude is still there now. It's like it's almost 40 years out of date and it still persists.
All right, so let's leap ahead to 1952. So the shorts category, the animated shorts category, opens up to non-American shorts. So The Romance of Transport in Canada wins an award. So God only knows what
film board.
Yeah.
The Romance of Transportation in Canada sounds
riveting, doesn't it?
My early influences.
Literally riveting.
My early influences, and for those that are interested, the Canadian Film Board animation, those sort of things were what helped me get the Magic Portal off the ground. If you're curious, a little Lego film, and I wasn't thinking, I'm going to make Lego films for the brick films in the future when the internet's invented. It was more like, how the fuck do I make a film by myself? Oh yeah, Lego. Wait, how do I do that? There's all these stop motion films coming out of Canada. Aha. That's the template I'll use. And that's what I did.
Nice.
Very cool.
So I have a lot of time for the Canadian Film Board. It's done great stuff and continues to do great stuff.
Maybe we should have Lindsay do a showcase of Canadian animation.
It sounds like it's going to need to be done,
That could be a retro. I think anyway. So the 60s.
Tanya's put a note here in the 50s as well that we need to comment on Chuck Jones's domination of the era.
Yeah, there's a couple of awards for Chuck during the 50s, Duck Amuck and What's Opera Doc. Yeah, that's where they fall. That's when Chuck is really there, and since he's my favorite animator.
Well, he's, I guess, our favorite short filmmaker of all time, if you think about it.
Yeah.
200 shorts, and none of them are slouches. And he's always doing something and interesting with it, even though it's just cartoons.
Even if you go back to the early ones, like the Dover Boys, Pimento U. So.
Absolutely.
So, 1961, we've got the first non-English film to win with The Substitute.
Okay.
You're talking Eastern Europe.
Yep.
So if you're thinking stop motion Eastern Europe, you should be thinking Trinka, Trnka, I think, Czechoslovakian, and Zagreb. They put out a whole ton of that stuff, and it's got that really crazy, stylized, well, almost abstract.
It's a Zagreb film, so yep.
Absolutely. In fact, you could see a bit of its DNA in things like some of the modern animations coming around, the very stylized, like We Lost Our Human. There's a little touch of that in there. So, although that's coming more from, not desktop publishing, but it's coming more from things like Adventure Time, that whole style of gumball style of simple motion graphic shapes.
Yeah,
it works. I like it.
In a 14-year-old sketchbook and could go in with the heavy metal sort of logo nearby as well. So perfect.
So the next point up is that a lot of awards were being won by animation in Hollywood due to their soundtracks during that time. So films like Pinocchio and Dumbo early on, all the way to The Little Mermaid. And The Little Mermaid is special because it is the film that launched the Renaissance.
Yes.
And it was deliberately structured like a stage musical. With that in mind, and its casting and its construction was definitely mimicking Broadway rather than
that's essentially what I was about to blurb out. But also the idea of like, they get the soundtrack award, so we do take them seriously, but it's still a bit patronizing. You could say that, in live action circles, you could say the action film fell into the same category, where they put out these amazingly successful films, like just especially during the 80s, and they'd be lucky to get the animated sound editing award or the editing award for supreme fast cutting or something, and that would be it. That would be as close as they could get. It would be very rare that they'd get a look in.
And there's definitely some films, like, I don't know what won the awards in 1968, but The Jungle Book is an amazing film. It definitely deserved accolades at that level. So
just watching the animation of Shere Khan and what's it, the snake? Hiss the snake? What's it? Oh, come on, snake. Oh, brain.
Not so. You're getting muddled up with Robin Hood, Sir Hiss, and
that's who I'm thinking of.
And Car.
Yeah, Car the snake. Car the snake is insane. I
I
watched it over and over again for all my life, and it still never ceases to amaze me.
That animation is amazing. Some really nice stuff. So,
and that sort of emphasis on soundtrack and awards pretty much continued through in the 90s. There was a lot of representations from Disney.
They were generally leading the soundtracks and the best songs for quite a while.
The most visual medium gets the sound awards.
Yes.
Good work.
Well, I wouldn't say it like that, because cinematographers would have our heads
I'm sure.
But also the 90s did start to shake up as well. So 1992, Beauty and the Beast, and it becomes the first animated film to be nominated for Best Picture.
And I'm not surprised. Like, when I first
took 70 years.
When I first got my hands on a copy of The Little Mermaid, it was a VHS copy because I was a struggling apprentice, and I was watching all the animations just to get myself into art school, and super excited watching that VHS, and it blew me away. To the point where I made a point of saving up money to go to the movies whenever a new animated feature came out. And back then they were fairly sparse. There wasn't an animation movie coming out every few days the way we've currently got. But so
well, it was just once a year pretty much until Pixar started becoming the other animated feature.
Well, we should.
And then they basically replaced Disney for a while there. So
potentially talk about Pixar because they come up as well.
Yeah, well, actually, I don't think I do have a few mentions for it, but we're going to have to skip ahead. So by 2002, that actually established the best animated feature category after pretty much to make sure that an animated film couldn't take Best Picture, just in case that happened. I heard on the rumor mill that it upset the Academy and the industry so much that Beauty and the Beast was nominated that there was talk about an animation category for a little while, and they sort of ignored it for a little until animation started coming up again. Because Beauty and the Beast shook them to their bones. It was
well, you got to remember the Academy Awards is actually an industry award, so it actually is. Well, it started off in a live-action environment. I guess in some respects, they invented what we now know it to be, at least in the English-speaking world. And so, when you're putting out little films for distribution, and you realize, what film festivals can I put it out for? You actually cast around for film festivals that are suitable for your little film. So Hollywood, or the Oscars, isn't the Universal Film Awards. It's a very specialized film award for that industry. And that's
but it is also
at the same time
it's also recognized awards for.
That's true. It's certainly got a lot of prestige that I think is way beyond its pay grade. But that, I guess, that sort of incumbency, if you like, in media or in cultural stakes isn't what it used to be, and in part because of changing times.
Is that date right? The best animated feature category. Shrek was a 2001 film.
The year was but the year of award was 2002.
Yeah. Okay. So the best animated feature, Shrek wins.
Yeah.
The first one. And that makes sense. I mean, Shrek, great film. It relied a lot more because they was the secondary studio compared to Pixar. DreamWorks went with story and characterization over of course the animations, and it worked. They got away with sort of the cute ugly thing, and it kind of sold. So it brought out that whole other
school of animations that we saw lately with Puss in Boots. So
yes, and it did launch DreamWorks animation into things. Though it's not like we didn't have films like American Tail and The Iron Giant in the interim beforehand. So,
but they did feel much more indie compared to, say, DreamWorks.
Yeah,
DreamWorks is large corporate, like on a par with Disney, just with less of the experience that Disney had accumulated over the decades, or the mausoleum, depending on how you want to look at it.
Disney had to wait a while because 2003 you had Spirit Away winning taking the best animated feature, which first non-American.
Yeah.
And 2006 you got the first stop motion with Wallace and Gromit's Curse of the Were-Rabbit.
I can't. As much as I love the Wallace and Gromit animations, and I was a big fan of Morph growing up and Nick Park and all that, I've not seen Curse of the Were-Rabbit.
Honestly,
it's definitely worth a look on the big screen.
It's worth a look, but it feels more like it's the awards for the previous work than the actual big screen team.
Okay, so sort of in the same way they gave all the awards to Return of the King,
Yeah. It really does. It really does feel like that.
Oh, really?
Okay. So, WALL-E not receiving a Best Picture nomination.
That's not quite that controversial, surely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay.
Well, it was called out by the critics at the time. I can't really remember this too well, so I don't know if you've got any sort of.
Well, it was okay, but it wasn't one of their standards. It certainly wasn't a.
I like WALL-E, but I don't think it's the best thing Pixar's done.
Yeah, but not the film. Not the film itself. Do any of you remember the controversy at the time?
No,
not really.
No. But you got apparently there's a controversy at the time, and you've got things like Rolling Stone critic Peter Travers stating if there was ever a time where an animated feature deserves to be nominated for Best Picture, it's WALL-E.
Despite the fact that
a lot of people.
16 years earlier, despite the fact that 16 years earlier, Beauty and the Beast had already been nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah, it's just thinking that they weren't. They had that second category to like a children's table to be just pushed to the side.
Do you think the controversy was? Do you think the controversy was about the fact that they had an animated feature where there was no dialogue spoken, and it was all done with animation? It was all very innovative, and they wondered why they didn't get a bell for that. Because that was one of the things they were selling WALL-E on, the fact that there was no language for most of it. Anyway,
it's a great film, but I don't think it's kind of in hindsight, it's not the standout Pixar film.
No, but it does seem to have had an effect because 2009 Up receives a Best Picture nomination. 2010 Toy Story 3 receives a Best Picture nomination. So
Up deserves that Best Picture nomination for the first 10 minutes.
Yes, the first half of it, definitely. Second half gets a bit weird.
Yeah. I mean, aside from Doug, the film doesn't get better beyond that. But
and they do.
Toy Story 3 definitely deserved its accolades.
Yeah. Just for the
that was a great third act, I thought.
Yeah. 2010 mocap removed from consideration. So we've grown with things.
It's just not animation.
Yeah.
We're basically seeing exactly the same thing with the AI stuff at the moment.
This is like saying
capture.
Films. Yeah. This feels a bit like films with visual effects aren't films or special effects.
Or
they're doing it to get rid of.
Tron's using Tron effects, so therefore it cannot be considered special effects. It's cheating somehow.
Yeah.
The motion control industry must have had an embolism when they heard that one.
Apparently the way it's written is still in effect, so they can for consideration for best feature. I'll check it out for definite, but it's like that.
Poor old MCU.
What was exactly said in 2022, David?
Okay, so it was an award presentation. It was by a number of live-action Disney princesses, Lily James, Naomi Scott, and Halle Berry, and they pointed out a less than complimentary view held by the Academy towards the medium, I should say. It's basically, I can't speak verbatim, but the suggestion was animation is for children, and you as parents out there have probably watched this number of times because you kept your
forced to sit through it.
And it's kicked off quite a stir in the animation community. I think it was Lord that reacted first, and as one of the recent directors of the Spider-Verse, and ended up initially responding on social media, calling it out, and then actually putting an article with co-Spider-Verse director to, I think it was Variety, producing a discussion as to how not complimentary Hollywood is towards animation, and the fact that they still think it is for children. That's an attitude that's affected them professionally and how films are treated. And it's the same year that you've got Work Like Flea, which was part of the animation category. Was a documentary, so it was up for Best Documentary, and it was up for Best Foreign Film as well. So that's incredible. And, obviously, having a look at those sort of works, are they being considered the same as in the animation category as something that's aimed for a more kiddie-friendly or family-friendly audience? So, yeah, it was pretty shocking, and it pissed off a lot of people.
Well, let's face it, it does take some gall for a bunch of live-action Disney copy films.
Princesses.
Yeah. To say that they stand above the animations that they are based on, because that is.
Isn't this where they bring out?
That is not the case.
When they bring out the receipts.
Any level, any of those live action films do not compete to the animation films that they have been attempting to copy. Like, I love the work you're doing on The Mandalorian, Jon Favreau, but The Lion King is a 2D animated film. Yeah. And you trashed it for the third one, for the 3D one. Yeah. The live action. Oh my God.
And
sorry, my little 2D brain is going.
But even when I was getting funding for my little epic back in the 80s, my little Lego stop motion thing, I ran into a brick wall where the funding body that was claiming to be representative of Australian culture and all things film didn't seem to know what animation was at best, and at worst had absolutely no time or respect for it. In fact,
surely with Dot and the kangaroo and the camel boy out there on VHS.
Well, that was considered as naff and a daggy and out of date as bloody Skippy.
I love this.
Except Skippy was live action, so it was a step up on the totem pole.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had to basically not just apply for my funding and say, here's the story, here's the storyboards, here's my planning, here's my this and that, blah, 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 budget. I had to basically sell the idea of animation to them. And then on top of that, I had to sell the idea that my characters are going to be this big. And I'm thinking, Jesus, how the hell am I going to do that? And I had to basically essentially shoot a whole sequence of the film as a test to say, here's my video, watch this. There's a close-up of here, there's a lot of that.
How long
and they begrudgingly gave me the minimum, $11,000, and I thought I was the richest person on earth at that point. That's what you get when you're 18 years old. You don't know any better. Yeah.
Someone hands you an 18.
But yeah, so I remember running into that, and I was so startled. I was expecting them to be knowing more about it than I actually seem to know more about what I was talking about. And again, this is, well, you're a funding body. Aren't you like the Canadian Film Board, which is also your cousin in Canada doing this sort of thing? And like, yeah. This was still in the days when they used to drag in an American star in an Australian film because they didn't think we could hold their own. It was the tail end of that, basically. You think on the tail end of that tail end there was animation?
Let's hit our last historical point and spend a couple of minutes.
I think we should, yeah.
Sounds good. So that brings us up to date with the last Academy Awards. Del Toro's Pinocchio winning Best Animated Feature. And even he ends up having a comment on it because, in response to last year's backlash, is going, animation is cinema. One of the cries out of the time. Animation is not a genre. Animation is ready to be taken to the next step.
Yep. Yep. You can do anything in animation. It can be for any audiences. Though I still run into adults, my own father, who will not watch animation because it's a kid's thing.
Well, the only serious critique I heard of animation that I thought, you know what, that's true, was actually from someone like George Miller. When we were working on Happy Feet, and he was making the comment that a lot of the film language used in animation is a hell of a lot less sophisticated than some of the film language used in live action filmmaking. And what he was referring to was nuances in performance and cinematography and stuff like that. Whereas if you look at the early, and this is at the times the early Pixar films are doing the rounds, and if you look at them, they're really, the early ones are really 2D animations done as 3D. You look at Toy Story, it feels like it was shot on a rostrum camera once you realize that the way that it's shot, and it was very simplistic. So yes, the technical artistry was there in the animation, but the camera work and the lighting and all that stuff didn't seem to match that level of animation that they were using, especially with the old Disney style stuff where it's all about the animation. A lot of filmmakers, it's a mixture of cutting, performance, editing, etc., etc., etc. And I thought,
I'd say they didn't hit that mark.
I felt I had to push back a bit with those sort of conversations. I mean, not with him directly, of course. You don't argue with God, but
if we're talking about 3D, early 3D was stiff, and because we know why.
Then you go and watch the Lego movie, and you think, oh yeah, that's looking pretty damn sophisticated.
Well, now. I think ever since The Incredibles actually is really when 3D has got the elasticity kind of needed to pull off actual animation at the level that 2D does. And I'm sure 3D people will kick my ass for that, but that's kind of where I saw it happening.
I agree. At least at the big end of town. Small end of town, there was always innovation, far more innovation than Hollywood ever showed.
Yeah, and then you get things like Japanese animation, which has been literally pilfered by certain Hollywood directors, shot for shot. Look at movies like Perfect Blue or Paprika.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
what's his name? Never forget what's his name. Head like a sieve. Where was the guy who directed Paprika? He died prematurely, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but he was a force to be reckoned with when he was still alive. He was definitely changing how people put films together, not just animated films, but films.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He treated time and space as interchangeable. It was just extraordinary. Yeah,
and totally ripping off anime to insert visuals into
that's it.
Western live action.
Well, let's put it this way. The classic example is what's the one that Netflix made of the Japanese space anime? It's Cowboy Bebop. Compare the original anime of Cowboy Bebop with the live action version. It's painful to watch.
I think that could just be the downside of live action. We probably sounds like we need to turn that into a conversation.
I think the context that the Netflix series was coming up with was probably wrong. But I don't think you can compare those two things very easily, because how are you going to meet the kind of graphic manga styling of, say, anime? Arguably, it's a whole different kettle of fish. It's like trying to compare apples with lead weights or something. It's a completely different thing, and it's got a whole different dynamic and paradigm.
Okay, Cowboy Bebop is more than just a sense of style, but there's no doubt about that sense of style is part of who it is. Well,
it's that kind of highly stylized, highly expressive, highly exaggerated manga style turned into moving pictures, and
with jazz coolness thrown over.
Oh, absolutely. And so the actual artwork itself is doing most of the work. It's like 2D.
But does that take away from its cinematic quality in any way?
Well, what you have
is the big question, because we're comparing
what you have
to live action and animation being these two different things, and they're not.
I think for Cowboy Bebop, if you were going to attempt something like that, you're going to find always it's going to be compared to the original, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
And so what you do, you want something that's the equivalent of that, but not necessarily like that. You make it live action because the live action version is going to offer something different and unique and a different take on that thing. Otherwise, there's no point even starting. You might as well just make another live action Disney film, really. And that's what it felt like. It felt like a retread. It didn't feel like they were trying to... I mean, I can see what they were trying for, but I don't think they got there.
I'd love to see some more live-action Disney remakes of things like Swiss Family Robinson and
what's Titan A?
Blackbeard's Ghost.
Hang on, that's not, well, they just did Escape from Witch Mountain, didn't they, a few years ago? Return to Witch Mountain?
I didn't watch that. I loved the Witch Mountain films, and I just couldn't handle The Rock in a Witch Mountain film. And from the sounds of things, I couldn't handle The Rock in a DC movie as well.
I don't think the DC universe could handle The Rock being in the DC universe.
Like if you're watching this, Rock, Dwayne, right? Let's have a chat, shall we?
I don't know how much of that was his fault and how much was the whole scriptwriter just or production not getting the idea of the character.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Off topic.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So yeah, the comparison that animation is not film, or is not at the quality of other filmmaking formats, media. I don't know. We can put films out. We can do film. We can do TV series. Yeah. Stop disrespecting us, Hollywood.
Well, they can disrespect us if they like. Just depends how relevant they want to remain, I guess.
Well,
you don't sit there whining for the incumbency to join you. You just route around the damage and go off and do your own thing. And then eventually they'll come limping up after you.
And the Academy Awards, as long as they can get someone who can do a Jack Nicholson impersonation every year on the stand. Yeah.
Oh, look, it's just I'm
pissing
a point
off
of reference. No. I mean, the Academy Awards is just a thing for a particular industry, and good for it. But, we're here in the other side of the planet, and we do our own thing. It'd be nice. It's nice to be recognized by the Academy Awards, but I have to admit, when I was working on films that were getting nominated for that sort of stuff, I was very startled to find I was completely unaffected by it. And there was a lot of people around me that were very keen, like, yes, recognition. And it's like, I realized, I don't take the Academy Awards seriously. And this is back in the 90s. I never did. So it's just an industry thing.
But it's not just the Academy Awards.
Well, no.
It is the industry itself.
Industry recognition is all very interesting. But I always felt, actually, I don't want to go to the States and make my career. I'd rather make it here. And, that's where I came. That was when it really came home. Yeah, that's what we want to do. We want to make it here. So yeah, having the studios go up at Whiteman Park, not having a big overseas studio turn up and just import all its stuff. Okay.
I realize I'm a fat little fish in a big pond. I take a lot more space than my ego should. But I just
excuse me.
I look out there, even in the local industry, animators are often seen as, oh yeah, you're in it. I've been to meetings, like industry meetings, where I've had people go, like producers look at me and go, we don't deal with animation, and drift off. Like, you can't have a conversation with them. And it's like, you don't understand. And quite often those people are the same people who are sending their credits or their animated maps or their documentaries with animated sequences and reenactments to these estates to get done. Like,
well, they treat it like a lab service. They treat it like a lab service. You go and get a sign painter to make a sign or something. I mean, I find it a bit startling as an adjunct to that, some of the visual effects stuff that we've been dealing with, how many live action people don't seem to know the first thing about visual effects, which is a bit startling. Because you would have thought, well, it's in just about everything now. It's like, it's how you handle difficult on-location scenes half the time. It's how you deal with why bother having physical car crashes or physical traffic when you can just replicate it?
You do hear about it. You do hear about it, but usually it's in the context of an actor complaining that they were having to act talking to a tennis ball
Well, that is a problem, and hopefully things like volumes will sort that out. But yeah, point taken. I think that's taken the whole green screen thing to its stupid level. So,
I guess that's
no points for you, George.
I guess that's the other thing we should raise. A lot of, like, as far as the Oscars go, a lot of the best pictures nowadays are very effects heavy. So
effects heavy. It's basically effects with a bit of live action kind of sprinkled in there to make it go further. Some of them are more bloody like Pixar films. There's so much stuff in there. It's like the smallest component is in fact the live action component. In some of the MCU films, it definitely feels like that.
Absolutely.
Dalton the Kangaroo had live action backgrounds.
Well, there you go. And so, there's a respectable piece of animation, clearly. Anyway, no, I mean it's a thing. I mean it's just something you deal with, and we chart our own course really, and so we'll establish our own credentials and work from those, and then invite people in to kind of partake and enjoy it really. So we don't want to set up shop and start squawking, otherwise you'll end up like the anti-mocap crowd or the anti-AI crowd. Neither are tenable positions in my book.
All right, anyway, so we're at an 20. Do we put a fork in it and call it done?
I think so.
Yeah.
We went done.
20 minutes over.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone.
That's okay, Lindsay. We know you like to talk about.
Now I've got 2 cold drinks.
Okay. So
cool.
I think yes. Don't forget the 3:30 announcement will come out, and I'm assuming Travis will make us do a small little vodcast thing announcing the word at some point, or maybe it will just come out on the Facebook page. Let's just say the Facebook page, because if Travis makes us do one of these just to announce a word again, then I'm just gonna spew. Yeah, this is your warning, Travis.
Excellent.
Yes, behind the scene. We've already got a villain producer behind the scene.
And we'll be back next month, but it might be earlier for us because or
later, depending on what we choose, because of Anzac Day.
Yeah.
Oh, true.
So it'll either be earlier or later, but keep a lookout on social media, and we'll let you know when we're coming back again.
Yes.
Sounds good. Okay. We look forward to your company.
Oh. Indeed.
Yeah. Well, I like having a chat, and hopefully we'll have some people pop in and chat with us.
We did actually briefly. Sorry, Subquest Evans. You came in. I hope you're still there. I'm glad you made it, even if you were late.
Oh, even in the chat, yeah. So
yeah.
Megamind.
Yes, Megamind. Talking about something about Megamind coming back as a show at some point.
I have a lot of respect for Megamind.
Because Megamind is
have
a better version of Despicable Me. Yeah.
Oh, you're not wrong.
I will have to back that comment up. I'll second that one.
Yes.
And also, I respect it. It doesn't have any series, Roman numbers, or anything after it. It's an original. It came, it went, did its thing, and didn't get ground into the dirt with sequels.
All Greek numbers. Yeah. With that, I'm going to say adios from me.
Farewell from me.
And good night from me. Catch you later, kids.
See you later, everyone.
Bye. Where's the off switch?